Notre Dame football came out with a 35-14 victory on Saturday against the Virginia Cavaliers. But there are two things that I came away from the football game that have me a little bit worried for the rest of the season and potential playoff run. Let's talk about these two things that the Fighting Irish absolutely need to get fixed down the stretch. Ryan Roberts, A to Z Sports, bringing you everything you need to know fresh off Notre Dame's victory against the Virginia Cavaliers. Two things that have me a little bit worried following this game. Now, just full disclosure here, I think there were a lot of positives in this game, and I'm actually pretty optimistic based upon what I saw. But if I'm projecting forward to a playoff run in a situation where it is win or go home, win, lose, and you're out, a one-game sample size, I think there are two main takeaways I have that could be a little bit troubling for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish if you're going to bet on them in that type of setting, in that type of high-pressure situation. First is on the offensive side of the football. I think from a progression perspective, I think that we've seen a lot of positive pulse to this passing offense over the last few weeks. I think Riley Leonard at quarterback has progressively gotten better. I think pass blocking since Billy Schrouth in general has been a little bit better, and we've seen a little bit of a we've seen a little bit of a grace period of guys just kind of strengthening that unit, but also just kind of giving it a safe space. Like, I think that guys like Pat Coogan, Rocco Spindler have at least kind of calmed the pressure on that unit from just a consistency perspective. So we've seen a little bit better protection up front. The one thing, though, that has me worried following this game that we have seen consistently kind of just pop up over the last few weeks is drop passes from these pass catchers. Now, coming in to the season, if you would have asked me who is the guy in high pressure situations, the safety blanket of sorts, I probably would have said it'd be Mitchell Evans, All-American tight end, returning, a guy that was your best player in the passing game a year ago. But as we've seen, Mitchell has been kind of slow coming back from the injury. He's looked better over the last couple of weeks, but still not to his typical self. So early on in the year, I look at it was going to be Bo Collins, former Clemson standouts, who had a couple really strong games to start the year. But we have seen kind of that progressively going downward the last few weeks. We've seen a couple rough outings for Bo Collins. We saw it today against Virginia, or on Saturday against Virginia, with a couple drop passes that have become a little bit of a trend over the last few games. It's been a few weeks since we've seen a really strong Bo Collins game, and that is a little bit unsettling for a guy that is a big body that you expect to be a consistent pass catcher, being able to pull the ball in. Another guy that I had high hopes for was Jordan Faison, who during the Navy game I thought showed a lot of signs, and Notre Dame coaches have been talking him up, like getting Jordan more and more involved. You saw a drop against Navy, but you also saw a lot of great things where I was like, oh, maybe he's propelling himself to being that high pressure chain mover, the guy that can make plays in the biggest moments. And then the last couple weeks against Florida State and then obviously against Virginia, we've seen a few drops. Only one today, but we saw it was a bad one. But we saw a couple last week against Florida State, which I just think if we're projecting a guy to make a catch in the biggest moment of the game, that is not something that you're going to easily just, have confidence in, obviously. Jaden Greathouse is the guy most recently. I think he's had a few nice games here, been stacking performances, had a nice game against Navy with that long reception, had some good moments, obviously, in others, including Florida State, including Georgia Tech, but then he gets hurt in this one. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be a serious one, but still, down the stretch, I still need to know who that guy in the passing game is that's going to make the big play, who's going to make the play in the biggest moment. Right now, I'm not sure who that guy is, and when you get into those high-pressure situations, as I talked about, that's not a great place to be. And in those pressure situations, my other big takeaway that is a troubling one is place kicking right now. Mitch Jeter, obviously, who's come back from his lower body injury and has kind of worked himself back the last couple weeks. We did not see him on field goal attempts against Virginia. We saw Marcelo Diabate. We also saw Zach Yoakum both miss field goals in this one. One was from 54 yards, which is a tough one for Diabate, but also we saw a 36-yard field goal miss by this unit. And guys, I mean, ultimately, Notre Dame is handling teams right now because they're just way better. They're way more talented than. But if you get into the playoff setting, you're going to be going against some really good football teams, and there might be a game that is going to come down to 1 kick. And right now, does anybody feel optimistic that Notre Dame is going to make a big kick in a big moment? I certainly am not. And against Virginia, we saw the worst of it, obviously. Notre Dame needs Mitch Jeter to get back healthy. If he's not back healthy, that could be a unsettling feeling going into the playoffs. But we have a couple weeks to figure that out. Hopefully both these things get remedied, but certainly a couple things to keep a close eye on moving forward. Folks, we're going to be talking all of this next coming week about the Army Black Knights. Notre Dame needs to win the last couple games to secure themselves a playoff berth. You know the deal as we celebrate this victory and move on to the next. As always, go Irish.